Second thing is, in the Bible, we learn the stories of Jesus, right? That's, the so-called Gospels. We learn about Jesus. We learn about the historical Jesus so that we can get to know the Jesus of faith. So we can be in relationship with the Jesus who's present to us in the Spirit. But if we don't know his life story, how are we going to know how that story impacts our story? So the Bible has within it the story of salvation history, the sacred story. And that story is the story that we see the story of our own lives in the mirror of. We come to know how we might interpret our own lives by looking in the mirror of the Bible. And so an example for that might be, what am I supposed to do walking down the street with the homeless guy on December 14th when it's freezing cold and you're like, oh man, I don't want to give him a buck. I don't want to take out my wallet. Oh, but you remember the story of the Good Samaritan. Okay? It's an example of the Bible. And how you act means that as you get on the Metro North train, you think, I was the Good Samaritan. I was not the Good Samaritan. I'm just throwing that out there as an example of how you might read your life in the story of the Holy Writ. How do you judge your life? Now, the biblical story is the foundation of the prayer book. It's the foundation of our prayers, and it is the sustainer of us. So nobody but nobody feels good about their prayer life all the time. Nobody. And there is a pendulum that swings through our lives called consolation, desolation. Consolation is, boy, I'm really getting it. I love amazing grace. I feel it, brother. Desolation is, oh man, I don't even believe in God. I'm not going to church today. I'm going to mow the lawn. I'm feeling it. I'm not feeling it. If your discipline is to just pick it up and read the Bible, it doesn't matter how you feel. It gives you something to do. It just is a thing that you do. Just like you exercise, you go for a walk, whether or not you feel good or not, you know what's good for you, you just do it. So, St. Augustine, the great St. Augustine, before he was St. Augustine, he was a wild man. Loose living wild man who was literally a genius. And I mean in the fullness of the meaning of the word genius. He was a genius. And he was obsessed by the deepest questions about life. And he was a teacher of philosophy. And he traveled around while his mother, Santa Monica, harangued him to become a Christian. And he lived with a woman and had a child with this woman, and he would have nothing to do with it. For 9 years he followed a man named Manichaeus. He was a Manichaean. And then what happened was he got to the point where he realized that philosophy was not going to answer the deepest questions in his life. It just wasn't going to do it. It just didn't do it. There was no satisfaction in these in the philosophical worlds that he was talking about. He had a deeper hunger, and he could not satisfy the hunger. So he is in Milan. He taught in Milan for quite a long time. And he's behind a walled garden in Milan. Can't you just see it? Right? It's in the early 400s, but you can see it. It's probably just like it is now today. And on the other side of the wall, there's these kids playing, and he's wondering if they're playing with a kind of hoop, kind of like a hula hoop sort of thing. And the kids are singing while they're playing, and he can't make sense out of it. And he's having a complete existential meltdown on one side of the wall. On the other side of the wall, these kids are playing, and the kids are saying, pick it up and read it, pick it up and read it, pick it up and read it. Or at least that's what he thinks the kids are singing. And he can't make sense out of it. And then he thinks, oh my gosh, maybe that is God speaking to me through these kids. Pick it up and read it. And he says to his companion, go get me a copy of the New Testament. The companion goes and gets it, and seated in the garden below the olive tree, he opens it up to the book of Romans, and he reads 2 verses, just literally opens to the verses. And it says, basically, it's not in a wanton wild life that one will find satisfaction, but in following Jesus. That's not an exact quotation, but that's what the 2 verses are talking about. And he goes, whoa! He has an instant conversion. Converts just like that. Eventually he's baptized by the great St. Ambrose, and eventually he becomes St. Augustine. So my my message to you this morning is pick it up and read it. Find it, go get one, and pick it up and read it. And Augustine had an instant conversion. That's not how it is for most of us. Most of us, it's kind of like the ice cube melting, right? We're not exactly sure when it happened, but eventually the ice cube melted. And that our conversion is slow over time. So whether or not it happens quickly or whether or not it happens slowly, if you pick it up and you read it and you just stick with it, the Spirit will move your life. You will experience a deeper life in Christ, a more holy communion with one another, and a greater love for the world.